share with us, what you disseminate, what you pour out is so important and is so powerful. You know, always, always, I want to encourage you and say, continue doing what you're doing, because we all receive from it, including myself. We all receive from what God is doing through you. And so I thank God for you and for your ministry. Thank you so much. Okay, folks, so we want to continue where we left off. We are looking at the fact that we are like God, and because we are asking the question, who am I? And we have been looking at the fact that God is love. God is love. And we looked at what it means that God is love. And we said that this word love is a word that we use, those of us who speak English, but in the Greek, there are several words that they use to describe different facets of love or different types of love. And we looked first at the thing that we mistake for love, and then we looked at some of the words that we use for love, like agape. Agape is the noun, and agapeo is the verb. So we agapeo. We looked at philia and phileo. And those are the two words that are used, you know, mainly in the scripture. And we see that agape love is the kind of love that is unconditional. It's a selfless love. It's the kind of love God has for man and God has for his son, but it's also a love that we have for him and a love we should have for each other. We look at phileo, which is a brotherly kind of love, but we also saw that love God has for us as well and for his son. And we looked at pragma, which is a committed kind of love where people grow in love. Yeah, a long, enduring, lasting love. We look at storge, which is a familiar love, a love that parents have for their children. We looked at ludus, a playful, flirtatious kind of love. You know, that's when you're infatuated with somebody and you're sending them text messages and you're back and forth. And then we look at philotia, which is, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing these things as it's supposed to be pronounced, but you know, these are Greek words, and sometimes you don't get the pronunciation right, but P-H-I-L-A-U-T-I-A, and that's a self-love, a kind of love we need to have for ourselves. You know, love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's an important kind of love, but it's not the kind of love where you have self-esteem problem that you think you're better than everybody else. It's a love that should boost your self-confidence, to make you know that you're important and that you are special to God. But if we are not careful, it could become unhealthy. So we looked at that. Then we looked at eros, which is the romantic, passionate kind of love we have for each other when you say, I fall in love with this person. But it's a love that can lead to lust. And that's what took us into lust. And we talked about lust. We saw the dictionary definition of lust. And after that, we saw that the dictionary definition of lust was really talking about worldly lusts. Because we also saw that the word lust really meant desire, a passionate desire, and you can desire the right thing. So we went through all of that. There's one other kind of love that we need to talk about before we move on. And that's what called mania, or some people say mania, M-A-N-I-A. I want to pronounce it mania. And this mania love is an obsessive kind of love. It's an obsession. When you're obsessed with somebody, you know, it leads to jealousy. It's a kind of possessive kind of love. You want this person for yourself only. You know, it's a kind of love where you can't stop thinking about the person at all. And you want them in your space, you want them in your face, you want them. And it's a kind of love that brings a kind of fear as well, because you're fearful of losing them. You're worried. It's the kind of love that makes you become a stalker, believe it or not. You become a stalker because you're stalking them. Wherever they go, you're behind them, you're checking them. And not only physically, but you become a cyber stalker too. Because you're checking to see when they're online. If they're online in the night, If they're online when they're supposed to be working and you're stalking, you want to know. That's mania. You're so obsessed. Is the kind of love where you're married. You're married and what time you're coming home? Where are you? You can't go anywhere at all. Look what time you reach home. Work is only 1 hour away and it's 2 hours now and you now reach home. Where were you? So you can't stop off anywhere. You have to come from work to home. Because if you stop off somewhere, you had to answer questions. In fact, you had to call and say. That's a man, that's an obsessive kind of love. Who you talking to? Who is that you're talking to on the phone? And the person gets jealous all the time. And they have to know your whereabouts, wherever you are. Wherever you are. And I'll tell you something. I want to share something, and I hope Pastor Nicole don't get upset with me for that. But there was a time, when you're young and you're in love and you just you can't get enough for the person. I remember I have to laugh now, eh? And don't worry, I'm not going to embarrass you. But I remember if I was in the living room and Pastor Nicole was in the bedroom, Pastor Nicole was going to come on and say, "Gosh, I'm missing you. Come back inside now." Or if she's in the kitchen and I'm somewhere, she'd come, "I'm missing you so much." That's a healthy kind of love. But when it's an obsessive kind of love where the person can't come out your sight, because not only because of how you're feeling, but you're jealous because you think they're going to be talking to somebody else. They'll be attached to somebody else. And it's the kind of love where if you're male and you talk to a female, that woman like you. She wants you. And the other way around too. You're female and you talk to them, that man wants you, He just wants to sleep with you. He wants to have sexual relation with you. And they're so obsessed. It's an obsessive kind of love. And it's things like you have to share the password on your phone because you can't have a password and this person ain't know. So you have to tell them because they have to have access to your phone. They have to have access to all your devices because they're so obsessed. They so feel like you might be talking to somebody or connecting with somebody. Let me ask a question. There are people who are married here. Should a husband and a wife have secrets from one another? Tell me what you all think. Should a husband and a wife have secrets from one another? What say you? Let me hear you.
All right, Dr. Richards. We have some comments. Judy says no. Heather says no. Galaxy 812 says no. Bernadette says no. Ursula says no. Nigel says no way. But Doc, I want to say it depends. It depends.
Everybody said no. Yes. Go ahead.
I am saying it depends. Janelle says yes.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah, Dr. Richards. Ideally we would want to say no, you shouldn't have. But it depends. It depends. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I think the very fundamental and important things, it's what you call a secret. For example, let's say you want to surprise me with something. You wouldn't tell me. That's a secret that you will keep, right? I think that if there's, as I said, important things that can affect the family, be it financially or a health condition or something's happening at work, that kind of a thing. Yeah, you shouldn't keep that as a secret. It depends on what it is. So we have also Marcia says no. Brother Zeno says, I don't think so. Heather says that she's saying that's a healthy secret. Adrian said only if it is a good secret.
A good secret. Okay.
Elder Sherry, hand is up.
Elder Sherry.
Good evening, family. So I would generally say no, but then there are some times that you may be a confidant to someone, right? And if somebody tells you something in confidence and they ask you not to share it with anyone, that would also include your spouse. And if it doesn't directly affect your spouse or your relationship, I don't see why you should share it. So in that case, yes.
All right, before you go, let me ask you this question quickly. I know we probably have other hands up. If someone says to you, Elder Sherry, I want to tell you something. I have something to tell you, but I don't want to tell your husband. You can't tell your husband. What would be your response?
I didn't get all of it. The internet kind of dropped a little bit, Dr. Richard.
So somebody says to you, I want to tell you something, but you can't tell your husband. I don't want to tell your husband. What would be your response?
Well, it will depend on what you want to tell me. I would want to know if it have anything to do with my husband, that would be or with anything directly relating to me that can affect my relationship with my husband. Once you answer no, well then, okay, because I would expect that what you want to tell me is probably just something that you need to share. It might be personal to you and you don't want anybody else to know.
All right, one more thing before we move on to somebody else. So they say to you, Elder Sherry, I really like you, girl, or feelings for you, or I'm in love with you.
No, them thing I just tell my husband.
But don't tell me, no, but they say, don't tell your husband, no.
No, those things I just tell my husband. Yeah, I'll tell my husband. That's not a secret.
Right. Okay.
That's your secret, but that's not.
I have to jump in, Elder Sherry, you're right. No, I mean, how many times I've done that with Dr. Richards? I say, hey, this person is so and so and so on. But I don't tell you, but you know how to tell you. That's how we wise do it. Elder hand is up, Dr. Richards.
Go ahead.
Good night, family. I would say generally no, but there are situations when you should. And if it's a situation where what you know, and it depends too on the maturity of your spouse, right? Because a lot of times, if you come out and you say certain things, and I'm talking from a man's perspective here now, right? If you come out and you tell your wife certain things, and you know for a fact, hey, this could cause trouble, right? This could cause real trouble. And it's not to say anything like you was unfaithful or anything like that, right? But let's say you went you went liming, right, with the boys and them, and the girl, and let's say in the lime, there was a young lady in the lime, and sometimes when you come home and they start to question you, right? If you come out and you say, well, yes, well, Jane was there. Now, for a fact you have nothing going on with Jane, right? But the fact that your wife know that, okay, Jane was there, so automatically she telling herself that Jane was there, so, hey, something could have been going on, right? The fact that Jane was there, why I wasn't there, right? Why you didn't tell me that Jane would have been on the line? So, right? So in a situation like that, if it's something that could bring some kind of animosity between you and your wife, like I heard this actor, there was a movie I was watching at the time, and sometimes And it's true sometimes, you know, when he said that, you know, you want the truth, but sometimes you can't handle the truth, right? So you want me to tell the truth, and sometimes as men, we want to tell the truth. But we know if we come out and tell the truth, right, it could cause real problems. So in situations like that, I would say, hey, instead of, you know, coming out and, you know, causing heartache to the person or bringing stress to their life or anything like that, you know, for a fact, it wasn't nothing that you did wrong, but you just don't want, right, any kind of strife. You just don't want your wife, your spouse looking at you in no negative way. I think, yeah, right, hush him out.
Hush him out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elder Sheldon. Thank you.
Dr.
Anybody
Richards,
else?
Dr.
Yes.
Richards, Brother Sheldon,
Yes.
take a bow, take a bow, take a bow, give him the prize. Dr. Richards, you know, that is so true. I personally know of, I work with someone like that, and this guy couldn't tell his wife, even if he went in to pick lunch up and he stood up talking to someone, he couldn't tell her. He couldn't even tell her if he saw a female friend from a long time, because she would get ballistic. So he wouldn't say anything at all. You know, and it's not that he wants to do it, but as Elder Sheldon said, it's just for peace sake, because he know he not done nothing. But when you have a paranoid and I'm using the word paranoid because some women can be like that, and I think it's because sometimes the men in their life may have betrayed them, Dr. Richards. So there's this trust issue. It's like Peter paying for Paul and that kind of a thing. And yeah, just to save your marriage because you love them so much, you just won't say you won't say anything. You know, that is what it is. Auntie Gail says, yes, it depends. It's not always your right hand. It's not always your right hand need to know what your left hand is doing. Marisha says, no, but if someone opened up to their partner and whenever they get vexed and throw it back to hurt them, it can lead to holding secrets. So again, it's that level of trust being broken there, you know, Dr. Richards. And yeah, that is it. Susan says it depends. And as Brother Adrian says, that only if it's a good secret. So yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? So that's it.
That's it, Doc.
Yeah. Well, I hear you, and I agree that sometimes for peace sake, you ought not to say anything. But we also have to be cautious with that, because it could bring us to a place where we tell ourselves that if I say something, something will happen. So you keep everything to yourself. You don't test the relationship. You don't test the maturity of your spouse. You don't you don't trust your spouse, and that is it. And that's not a healthy place to be in a relationship. And I hear you. Don't feel that I don't understand what you're saying. I know. I understand, because there are things that would cause a problem, and you just don't want it to happen. But let me ask you this question, a follow-up question to that. If it is that you did something and you did something wrong, and you knew that your spouse would not be pleased with it, would you share it? Would you say, look, I did this, I was unfaithful, maybe it might not have been even sexual relation, but that same party or gathering or lime, the girl was there, whoever it is, Brother Sheldon, she was there, and somehow this time, for whatever reason, you're given maybe a little kiss or hold hand, or you flirt or some kind of thing. What would you do? Would you go home and say, listen, I'm sorry, this is what I did? And it may not necessarily be that your wife is a jealous person or your husband is a jealous person. It may be that you did something wrong. You did something. Do you think that they have the right to know? Or do you think, well, listen, I dealt with it. I know it was wrong. I've worked it out. I've repented before God. So she don't need to know that. What do you think? No, that wasn't just for you, that was for everybody, but go ahead.
I know, but let me take a jab at this. Again, I would say, even if you know that you was wrong, now what it is in the back of your mind that you study now is that, hey, I would have done this evil, right? And you're studying now the consequences of my decision, right? If I should open up now and let her know, well, look, this is what happened. This is what I did, right? And understanding that the trust was betrayed, and knowing that if I open up and I tell her this now, the kind of hurt, well, definitely the hurt that would take place, the fact that she wouldn't trust me the way she trusts me anymore, and not only her, but by extension now, if there are children involved in the relationship, and let's say the children of them find out, well, daddy was unfaithful to mommy, right? Or something like that. How the children going to react to this for the fact that you open up and told her this is what happened, because you don't know how she's going to react, because some may say, well, okay, this is what happened, let us talk. Some people might say, here, what's going on? You see me? You need to move out and give me some space, right? So if the children of them say, well, daddy move out of the house, they start to ask questions, right? The in-laws start to ask questions. So it's not only, you alone, it's like I heard Dr. Miles Monroe made a statement today. He said, when you have a decision to make, you shouldn't look at the decision, but look at the consequences of the decision, right? And if it is, you can live with the consequences of the decision, then the decision is very easy to make, right? So in a situation like that, as much as, yes, you would have gone before God and repented and said, yes, this is what it has happened, right? And you know for a fact that, okay, and the Lord forgive you. But I would say 99% of men will not tell their wives what went on. And I dare say women also.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elder Sheldon. Anyone
Correct
else?
is right. Correct is right. Correct is right. And we have Sister Susan said the same thing. That's true. We tend to sometimes think that women, different and that kind of thing, but women know how to hold it down to her and to keep them out quiet. So we have Mitzi, Joshua, and Elder Sherry in that order.
Good night. I agree with Elder Sheldon, but at the same time, why would you put your mouth on someone else besides your wife or your husband? you know, you shouldn't have in the first place, you know, but in my opinion, I would be honest. I will have to be honest with my husband, regardless of the consequences, you know, I will have to deal with that aftermath, you know, but I couldn't just lie down on the same pillow with him, knowing that I stuck my tongue down a man's throat and it's not him, you know. So yes, Elder Sheldon have a point, but at the same time, you know, if you truly love your spouse, regardless of the consequences, you know, you have to look that person in the eyes. And if you have a conscience, you know, that will plague you. It doesn't matter if it's a kiss, you know, if you do a kiss, you will do something else, you know, if you don't watch yourself. So, you know, more better you come clean and wipe the slate clean, you know, before God and before your spouse, you know, and you just deal with the aftermath. Yes, the person will be angry, but at the same time, you as the individual bring that in your marriage, which you shouldn't have brought in the first place, you know. So that's my opinion, you know. So no, I would have to be honest. I will have to be honest because my conscience would not allow me to be dishonest. It would not, especially if you truly love that person. And that's my opinion.
Thank you, Sister Mitzi.
All right, Dr.
Um,
So before Jonathan Joshua comes on, Marcia said that is so true. Margaret says effective communication is being able to express yourself despite the response from the other person, and eventually it builds trust. And Margaret is saying that she agrees with Sister Mitzi. Joshua.
Yes, yes, Dr. Richards. Personally, I'm looking at the situation that is being mapped out, right? And I personally don't see a win in the situation. Like there's no way to get out of there safely, right? Maybe it's just because I'm not married and I don't know, but I try to think of it logically. And there's no answer. There's like it's just like a poorly written equation. Like there's no answer to it at all. Because I'm saying if you tell your spouse in the first place, then let's say you know this your spouse, because I think the question was that if you did something wrong and you know that your spouse will get mad, what would you do? But I'm saying if you say it in the first place, your spouse is getting mad. But if you keep it a secret and then the secret comes out later, they'll get mad not only because they did something wrong, but adding on top of the fact that they kept it a secret. So in both situations, it's a losing battle. So I just I'm trying to understand it and I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, logically, I'm thinking the best situation is to just see it outright and take the consequences, you know. Um you might as well just light the fire, and if it get burned, then so be it. But maybe it's just not because it's because I'm not married and I don't really understand it that well, but I just don't see any kind of win to the situation.
okay, thank you, Joshua.
Dr. Richards, we have Susan says, yes, go before God. Michelle says, just do like Joseph in the Bible and run. You know,
well, the thing is, I mean, we talking about before this scenario, you have done something, you didn't run. So this is the scenario.
Right. So she also says, for me, I will have sleepless nights. I may never know if one of his friends would call your wife and sell you out without you knowing, which would cause a heavy strain on the marriage. Right? Wow. Nigel says they call it catch-22. And Auntie Gail says that she agrees with Joshua. We have Elder Sherry and Christine in that order.
Yes, so I am saying I think I will, because for me, I probably would be antsy, very uncomfortable, and eventually I might probably figure out something happened. So I would come out with it. Like Joshua said, the consequences, you're not sure what is going to happen, but definitely there will be some consequences, but you have to be prepared to deal with it. I don't think I'll be able to contain it.
Okay, thank you. Sister Christine?
Yes, pleasant good night. Well, I see Joshua did hit one of the point what I was going to say really, because I am saying that, okay, you went out and you happen to do something wrong. Could be your ex or whoever you was talking to and you end up doing something wrong. But what about his wife, BFF, was there and you didn't even recognize or know that that person was in the corner there standing up with her friend, right? But watching every move you was making, and eventually, because you're saying, if I only tell my wife, she going and blow off you, so I might as well keep it a secret. And then she come now and she say, well, no X, Y, and Z. And she will wonder, why you didn't tell me that, how it is you have to wait until this one come and tell me, my best friend had to come and tell me what's going on when you should have come and tell me already. So with that, as how Joshua hit the point, is best you come out and say instead of hiding, because what in the dark does come out to daylight.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that it? Is there anyone else?
Dr. Richards,
Mhm.
in the chat, Jolene says, I believe in transparency, though this would be difficult if the spouse is not understanding. And Judy says, my conscience will kill me. Right, Dr. Richards? That's the
All right.
no
Thank you.
hands.
Now,
You're
this
welcome.
is a very touchy situation. And I want to tell you, there's no one size fits all. For most of you, you said that you would want to come out and say because of your conscience. And because of your conscience, you would not be able to sleep, you would not be able to rest. And as is it Ella Sherry said, you'll be antsy. And in that case, you know, like Ella Sheldon said, once you can live with the consequences, then the decision is easy to make. I also understand under Sheldon's position, because there are some marriages that would not be able to withstand something like that, as simple as it may be. It may not even be adultery. It may be just that the person would have done something, and it is difficult for some marriages to deal with situations like that, especially if people have been close, husband and wife have been close, and trust is broken. It is difficult to rebuild that trust. It's not easy to rebuild. So the decision will have to be made there, and then what do I do? And that is when you need somebody, you need counsel, you need support. You need somebody to be able to talk to give you that kind of guidance, because your situation may not be with mine. I might go home and tell my wife, you know, this is what happened, and we talk it out and we work it out. You might go home and tell your wife, come, somebody's mic is open. Could we check that, please? Check your mics, please. You might go home and tell your wife, or you go home and tell your husband, and all hell will break loose. Okay, so this situation has to be handled very delicately. It is not one size fits all. And I've had situations like that before to deal with people. The thing is too, that one of the good things about sharing with your spouse in that you let them know, listen, I have done something wrong. I repent. I acknowledge what I've done wrong. And your telling them gives you a sense of accountability, because where before, if you didn't say anything, you may find yourself in that situation again because your spouse doesn't know. And, you know, that could be the spark that lights a fire. So you do something and, hey, my wife doesn't know, my husband doesn't know, and it just me know, and the person know. And as my good friend keeps saying, you know, the devil knows, and they keep in secret with the devil. And that the devil can escalate that and cause it to grow into something that will destroy not just you and your spouse, your family, especially as Elder Sheldon said, children may be involved, you know, your community, people who trust you, people who look up to you. So the best thing is, yeah, if you can come clean, but coming clean is not always the easy thing to do and may not be the appropriate to do at the time, at the particular time. Okay, now don't go saying that I say don't tell your spouse. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we have to look at the situation and see what the consequences are, what the fallout are. Who else is it going to affect if I say this, if I share this now? There are some people who says, listen, I will share it with my spouse. I will tell him, I will tell her, you know, but I want some time pass. I want, when I talk about this, I'd be saying, you know, something happened some time ago, or a month ago, a year ago, or 2 years ago. Rather than saying, you know, yesterday, this is what happened. There are situations where you have to consider that as well. So again, there's no one size fit all. Honesty is always the best policy. Transparency is always best. And, you know, sometimes our marriages are put to the test, or relationship, because not just marriage, it could be even with, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend. Our relationship are put to the test sometimes by something one would have done. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with someone who has wronged you? Is it that you want to get back at them? Are you quick to forgive? Are you willing to forgive? All these things will come into play. Yeah, so, you know, I can't give you a yes or no answer. What I would say, as I said, no one size fits all. And this is something that has to be worked out, walked through and worked through. Yes? Okay, anyone else?
Churches, we have Jonathan and Elder Sherry.
Jonathan.
Yes, Dr. Richard. If you buy food for your friend, right? And then your wife just come and say, why you buy food for her? I don't want you buying food for her, stop buying food for her. I will just go to and say, hey baby, I need us to calm down. It's not what you think. It's just a friend and I just helping her and I just buying food for her. You don't have to get all like that.
Okay, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
And also, we have Jennifer, who is on YouTube. She says it depends, Dr. Richards, it depends. Elder Sherry.
Just confirming, I'm reconsidering my position. I just asked my husband how he will respond. He said, but I don't tell him.
Well, you see, and that's the next thing too. That's another consideration. If you know your spouse and you know your spouse would prefer not to know, maybe in a situation like that, you don't say, because telling them may destroy the relationship that you have with them. Now, remember, your motive is important to her. Your motive for not telling. Because if it is that you're not telling because you don't want to get in trouble, your motive for not telling is because, you know, you don't want them to look at you at a particular way, or it's because of pride, that's a different thing. But if your motive for not saying anything at the time is because you are considering your relationship with the person, that's a different thing. All right. So you need to know the spouse.
Yeah. We have some comments in the chat. Marcia says, my thing is just don't get involved, because the truth always comes out. And Janet says, so true, Dr. Richards, it's not easy in some situations, but God. And Ursula is agreeing with Jonathan. And Bernadette says, I will never do that for my husband. I'll never do that to my husband. I have so much respect for him and I love him too much.
You know, well, we don't have much more time, but Bernadette, you know, there's a question I would like to ask you, but we're going to continue. We're going to pick this up tomorrow, God's willing, where we're going to continue the discussion, because there's some other things I would like to ask you concerning this. All right, so we're going to have to end here for this evening. But again, I want you to think about it and consider it. And I remember all this falls under love. Eh? Love. Now, how do we love? How do we show love? And when we're thinking about this particular type of love, which we call mania or mania, where this is an obsessive kind of love, is this really the kind of love we want to experience? And how does it, affect us and our relationship? So we're gonna pick it up tomorrow, God's willing, at the same time. And so I want to hand back over to First Lady. Thank you so much for listening, for being a part, for interacting. And it's important for us to do that because we learn from each other and we help each other and we grow by interacting, by talking, by saying, this is how I feel, this is how I see it. Because sometimes what we think is right, when we hear another perspective, we might reconsider our position. Yeah? So it's good for us to interact and to talk. So God bless you. Love you dearly. We're going to continue this tomorrow evening. God bless you.